These are your stories, told with real passion. The Anne Meehan Show, a daily dose of everything Ottawa, right here on 1310 News.
Hi there, 2:05 on a Friday afternoon. A smart person once wrote, "No one is born a writer. You must become a writer. In fact, you never cease becoming because you never stop learning how to write." I'm making an admission here. I love writers. I love people who write books for a living. I am fascinated by it. So I am very excited to welcome my next guest, Michel Weatherall. Michel is the author of a trilogy of books. That means 1, 2, and 3. They're all related to each other. He's also written a book of prose and several other novels, and he lives right here in Ottawa. So, Michel, I am glad to finally be able to talk to you.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
Okay, so I have to go right back to the beginning. When did you know that you wanted to become a writer?
Oh, there's $1 million question. I don't think I ever knew. It was something that's always been there. You know what? At the end of the day, I believe everybody has a book in them. Everybody has it. I do.
So when did you decide that you had to sit down and write that book that was in you?
Well, the first one, the Symbiote, I wrote probably about 20 years ago. And it sat in a desk drawer for the longest time. And my background is in print. I've been doing it for nearly 30 years. And it was my daughter that said to me, well, this is what you do. Why don't you take the next step and just publish it yourself?
And you did that?
And I did that, yeah. And then the second one was about half written at that same time frame. And it had been, like, I had the second storyline mapped out. It just got parked.
And that was The Hunt. That was the second story, The Hunt.
That's right, The Hunt, yeah. And I finished that off at the beginning of last year. And then I have always had the third one in my mind, but I had some stumbling blocks in it, and I literally parked it for about 10 years trying to figure a way around them. And it's like anything when you're dealing with creativity, is when you get that germ, that spark of an idea, boom, the rest just comes. And I did that within probably 13 months.
Okay. I wish I had a spark that would just come like that. So let's go back, like the Symbiote. Tell people what it's about, and what do you... Like, who is your mentor, or who was it that you wanted to emulate, or did you want to emulate anyone when it came to writing?
Well, one of my primary influences would be H.P. Lovecraft.
Yeah, explain who H.P. Lovecraft is. I had to look him up last night. I have to say I'm totally fascinated by this man.
That's right. That's the one thing I find with the different events and book signings I've done is when I mention that, you get one of two responses. Either they don't know him at all, or they're absolutely gaga over him. There's no middle ground of it.
American writer of what, considered a pioneer when it comes to horror.
Yeah, horror. Well, they've classified him as weird fiction, but it's kind of one of those odd genres that it's not well known. I don't even like using the term because most people aren't familiar with it. I use horror. Kind of hesitate with the term horror because it's not horror in the sense of like slash and gore. It's more cerebral. And
it has to do with the people with a curiosity, with a quest, go looking for something that's like right. A Pandora's box, that all these awful things happen, right?
That's right.
Okay, yeah. Is that and that's what happens in your books?
Pardon me?
That's what happens in your books, sort of?
That's what happens, yeah. That's the trigger event, at least, in the first one.
Okay, so what was the trigger event, and who's the main character?
Well, in the first story, the main character is a master pianist, and he's kind of jaded and fed up with music today. He believes there's got to be something more beyond what we have, and he begins going on a research. Now, I'm not going to give too much away. This is the first chapter. It sounds like a lot, but it's what gets the whole ball rolling. He comes across an ancient composer's work, and he traces his ancestors down to a woman in England, and when he finally gets together with her and they try to figure out the music and perform it, they find out that it wasn't a piece of music that was lost from history, it was removed from history. Because what it does, it opens up a portal outside of our universe and lets something out that shouldn't have been.
Ooh.
Now, in that initial event, he loses his wife. His main motive in the first book is trying to find her. That never happens because of the fallout of what's released in that initial event. And during this, you get these hints of these clandestine government and military organizations that are aware, but you never really hear much about them. In the second book, The Hunt, it follows his wife's story. And you do come face-to-face with these other military and government organizations. They are alive and well, and it starts to escalate at this point. And the second book primarily takes place between Montreal, Canada, and Tokyo. And then come the third book, I don't want to say too much about it, things escalate to a global scale. In the third book, there's about, I'm going to say, 7 or 8 main characters, and it takes place in 3 different times. It takes place in ancient Egypt. There's an archaeological dig in 1925, and then there's the now.
Wow.
And it jumps back and forth between the 3 zones until, well, finally it comes to its conclusion. But I'm not going to give that one away.
Michel, what is the process like? I mean, it sounds like you're covering a lot of time periods, different skills like archaeological. How much time and effort do you put into researching and figuring out timelines and where your characters are going?
You know what I found the most challenging was I didn't start. The first 2 take place more or less in the now, so it wasn't overly difficult. But in the third one, it was little things. There's one point where one of the professors is giving a speech, and my original manuscript had him doing a slideshow. And then I found out that that wasn't in existence in 1925, and they really started to. There's another point in the second and third book where the Japanese destroyer, the Yamayuki, features in it. And originally it was a different ship because I liked one differently, and when I did a little bit of research into it, find out it wasn't commissioned at the time the stories take place.
This is important, isn't it? Because you've got people who are going to read this and say, yeah.
I'm absolutely sure I've probably missed some things. I mean, you can't hit everything,
Yeah. Do you sit down in the morning, first thing in the morning, and you do your writing then, or are you a creature of habit?
No, absolutely not. That'd be a question you ask my wife because she gets irate with me about this. I'll get an idea I'll wake up at 2 in the morning with my idea, and I have to get up. I have to get it out of me. I have to put it on paper, even if it's just a jotted down note or something. But it's one of those things. I do believe the creative process is you don't have absolute control over it. It finds its creativity on its own.
How do you describe your writing?
Oh, I'm really hesitate on that one. I've had recently another local author, Laurie Stewart, did a book review, and it's available on Apartment 613, and she had described it very much with the Lovecraft atmosphere and theme. And I take that as a huge compliment because although my stories take place in a Lovecraftian world, I'm kind of hesitate to describe myself in those terms.
Well, Lovecraft had a sad demise. You don't want to go,
He didn't have a very nice life.
No, he didn't have a very nice life. When did you first encounter him?
I think it was shortly after. That's a good question. I know I was on a bus. I think it was either at the end of high school or shortly after that. And I remember when I first started reading everything I could get my hands on, and most people have the same thing. The man's vocabulary was incredible. When you start reading his works, ultimately you're always reading 2 books at the same time, whatever work you're reading of his, and a dictionary. It's a definite learning curve.
Okay. Michel, was it difficult for you to get published? I mean, this is a different time than when Lovecraft was writing.
That's right. Well, actually, I did it myself. I'm self-published. You get to this point where you just say, I'm going to go for it. And I do wholeheartedly believe, like I said earlier, I do believe there's a book in everybody. One of the coolest things I've found with this experience is at different events and book signings I've done is the people you meet and the conversations you get in. Like I have to say, Ottawa has some of the most awesome people around. And the conversations always gravitate towards inspiration, dreams, goals, ambitions like that. And it's great hearing that from people. Like it's really something else. And I think sometimes I think it's fear that's holding us back. I think we get to the point where we say to ourselves or we convince ourselves, I'm going to do this once I'm ready. But the thing is, if you wait till you're ready, you never will be. I know I wasn't. I'm still not. Even I get in conversations with people, and I have this fear in the back of my mind that somebody's going to walk around behind me and pull back the curtain and see the little wizard behind it.
Yeah. Well, we know the big names, Carol Shields and Margaret Lawrence. Do you want to be like well known like that eventually? Is that the goal to have everybody reading your books, to read a Weatherall book?
That'd be awesome. I mean, we all dream of that. But I mean, at the end of the day, I'm not really. Well, let's be honest. I'm not doing this to lose money, but I'm not doing this to make money. This is a passion. This is just something I enjoy doing. It gets it out so far. The people that have bought it and read it have good things to say, and I enjoy it. It's great. It's fantastic.
I came across you when I saw an event that was you were holding a book signing in the Glebe, but there's also something coming up this summer in downtown Ottawa that to promote local authors. Can you just tell our listeners about that right now? Where you're going to be?
It's in the Byward Market. It's called the Authors Market. Basically, it's open to you email them or call them up, and you pick 4 dates, more or less of your choice, assuming it's available, and then you can show up and peddle your wares. I mean, I'm going to be there on July 8th, the July 29th, and then August 26th.
So this is important to promote your books and get people aware that you're out there, you're a local author, and you're a great writer, and you've got great stories to tell.
That's right, yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, you need to get out there. You need to just get out there and do it. Meet people, make your face known. I mean, at the end of the day, I think it's you yourself that sells the books because, like, you know, any other bookstore, and I'm realistic here, most people, they don't know me. Who am I? At the end of the day, I'm just some guy that lives in Ottawa, right?
Well, you're an author who lives in Ottawa.
I'd like to think so.
And there's a thriving book writers club here in Ottawa, and I hope to talk to each and every one eventually because I admire what you do greatly.
Thank you.
Okay. That is Michel Weatherall. He's the author of, I dropped my page with Symbiote, The Hunt, and what's the third one, Michelle? Necropolis. This is a trilogy. You got to read it. But then there's a book of prose and there's other books. Michelle, thanks for talking about us, and I hope people look you up and go see you down in the market.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be on your show.
Great. Thank you. We're going to take a little break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about what's happening in Montreal that's got historians and other people all up in arms. Stay with us.
If it's happening